Well, here I am, learning how to stream. My traditional candle. Tonight, something different. The beginning of a Monday night tradition for me, where I teach myself how to Twitch and play this beautiful, beautiful object known as Artifact from Mousehole Press. Artifact by Jack Harrison. I've had this for a while, and it's been sitting on a shelf, and I've just been waiting for the right opportunity to dig in. And tonight's the night. So we're going to start this game, have some dice. Doesn't require dice, but there's some choices to make, and I figure I'll randomize those choices. But yeah, so I wanted to thank Mousehole Press for making a very pretty thing and for shipping it so well. This is a one-player RPG where instead of being a warrior or a wizard or something, you are a magic item. And this is basically about the creation, the use, the history of that magic item. And more than that, I really don't know because I haven't played it yet. I flipped through it a few times, but I haven't really done all of the things. And so this is why we're here. So I'm going to move that there before it gets too hot. Candle is for me. The paper is for all of us. Got my pen. Got a lovely fizzy water. And I think we're ready to go. So just make sure that everything is working correctly. Yep, looks like we're good. So, artifacts. You rest, fallen or discarded in the dirt. But your body is not flesh, and you are not mortal. So you wait. Seasons pass in flashes, cold following heat, rain following drought, death following birth, until one day your wait is over. Someone lifts you from the detritus, inspecting you, feeling your weight in their hands. They decide to keep you, becoming your keeper. Through them you experience the world. You see them undertake great quests or perhaps commit atrocious sins, all with your aid. You almost forget the long time spent in the dark until inevitably you return and rest, fallen or discarded in the dirt. You do not know how long you will wait for someone new to arrive. All right, what we need to play. An hour or two. I think we have that. A quiet place. Kind of. A journal, index cards, or sheets of paper. They do provide downloadable printable sheets that have spaces, but I've opted for an old sheet of animation paper. Art materials, writing implements, a way to play the soundtrack. They do also have a soundtrack that works as a timer for certain things. And from what I remember, it's sort of a meditation, which is very cool. And I love this as well. Kudos to Jack Harrison for including this. This game is designed to be played alone, mitigating many of the consent issues associated with playing games together. However, as an intentionally solitary, somewhat melancholy experience, it may not be the best thing to play when struggling with feelings of loneliness. If the game leaves you feeling isolated or you're already struggling, there are good online resources that might help. And there's various lists. I also suggest that you can play it writing back and forth to friends, which is very sweet. This game is about magical items, tools with incredible powers, and a sentience that grows as you play. Items do not die, but can be tarnished, broken, buried, or otherwise lost and forgotten. Keepers. An item cannot act alone. A keeper must seize it. Only then can it travel around, seeing wondrous places and having grand adventures. Its agency is limited, shackled to its keeper, but it can influence its situation through magic, communication, and force of will. Writing the story of each keeper, consider how they obtained the item, how they treat it, what they achieve with it, and how it changes them and their destiny. Time and rest. Magical items outlive even the most venerable keepers. Through death, bestowal, or carelessness, a keeper relinquishes the item and your stint with them ends. The sun turns, seasons pass, and flesh and blood return to the earth. The item is at rest, inert and waiting. You always choose how much time passes while you wait. Eventually, a new keeper will arrive. Traits. Traits are characteristics describing a magical item. They might be physical or magical properties or facets of its development personality. Each artifact has a list of sensible traits for that archetype, but always feel free to make up your own. Don't worry about traits' precise definition, they mean what you want them to mean. Change. Playing the game, the item evolves and develops, shaped by its experiences, time passing, and the keepers who wield it. At various points, you are asked to change something about the item. This usually means adding, removing, or modifying a trait, a detail about the physical appearance of your item, a detail about something in your world, a response to one of your artifact questions. A particularly momentous change may make it sensible to do several of these things at once. You can also make change whenever you feel appropriate, even if you were not explicitly prompted. The game takes place over 3 acts, forming your item's story as your game progresses. Each act has its own set of keepers and time options to choose from. After choosing a keeper, you complete a series of steps to tell their story and explore the ways your item might change from the experience. You can use these steps to tell a full, detailed story or keep things short, with a brief outline of events. First, you'll describe the keeper, providing their name and a few striking details. Think about how they acquired the item. Was it given to them, or did they find it, discarded or unguarded? Then answer the 2 questions or prompts listed under the keeper's heading. Then choose a memorable event or deed defining your item's time with the keeper. If they achieved great things together, choose from the victories and valor. If the item was slighted or misused, choose from neglect and mischief. As your item learns from experiences, you may answer one of your artifact questions. Finally, think about how the keeper ends their time with your item. Where and how do they lose or relinquish it? I think I'm going to break there, and I'll come back to this as I need to, because that's basically the game right there. As you await the next keeper to claim your item, you'll rest in darkness or with your eyes closed. The act tells you what to think about while you wait. You can use the ambient soundtrack or wait in silence with a timer, listening to the sounds around you. Don't worry if your mind wanders while waiting. Your item's mind wanders too. Eventually the silence breaks and a new keeper appears. When you've completed your rest, you might be asked to choose an option from a table representing time passing. If you want to explore or change the world around your item, choose from shifts and currents. If you want to change your item, choose from dust and rust. When you're ready, you'll choose a new keeper. Each act provides instructions on where you should choose from. So the first thing we need to do is choose what artifact we're going to play. Each is an archetype of an sentient, magical item. They have thoughts and desires and can communicate directly or otherwise with their keepers. There's a weapon, the shield, the instrument, the ornament, the deck, the footwear, the staff, the tome, or the automaton. There are 9 options. So I think I'm going to grab a D10 from my lovely Dice Macabre dice bag here. I love these chunky, oversized dice. Very satisfying. And here we go. There we go. Get the Dice Macabre. Tiny skull dice. Made up of lots of tiny skulls. I like them. So, I'm going to be very bold and number all the artifacts available. And let's find out what artifact you, of course, could choose. If you were to play this game, you can get a print and play of it, or you can, I believe, with their new Kickstarter that just completed for a similar game that is a spaceship, you can, I think they're still taking orders for that after the Kickstarter has closed, and I think you can order a copy, a nice printed copy of Artifact along with that. Whatever you do, you can just decide that you want to be an instrument or what have you, or choose your own way of randomization. But for me, I'm going to use a die because I don't want to decide. I want fate to decide. And you might be wondering what happens if I roll a 10. I don't know. 8. The tome. A receptacle of knowledge, lost or forbidden. You were penned in the stale air of a library by an obsessed sage. Describe them, their subject of expertise, and their grand study. I'm going to switch to the pen. If we're penned, penned by masked Lutherian. An obsessed sage. Masked Lutherian. Studying the property of botanicals, ostensibly for the creation of better varieties of tea. But in looking into the various plants whose leaves create delightful heated beverages, discovered some mystical traits to some of the plants that, when steeped, provided healing and more. This is the sage who has discovered healing potions, as well as potions of strength, potions of speed, and potions of weakness. Before Masked Lutherian discovered these properties, well, this is the split. This is where adventuring becomes viable without a healer in your party. But of course, these things can be used by your enemies. Healing potions, strength, speed, and poison. And so, to keep this knowledge safe, Masked Lutherian turned to the book, the tome, a lone repository of knowledge of all of the things that Masked Lutherian they had collected. And to keep it safe, he enchanted the book with 3 traits. The book itself is loyal only to him or to its keeper. It is fickle. It must be won over. And it's paranoid. It does not trust easily and believes anyone but its keeper has the worst intentions. Now for the drawing. This I will start in pencil. think for now we'll draw it closed. Just get the basic book shape. Is masked Lutherian has access to good bookbinding resources, so for now, our friend the Tome of Potions is in fairly decent shape. I would say that our sage would not emboss the cover with any sort of title. He wouldn't want to advertise the contents. And likely he would include a leather strap that can be used to keep the book sealed. The library itself only has certain types of generic bindings. It would allow for ease of titling, but instead of placing a title in that space, Masked Lutherian simply puts an L. And beneath a simple warding spell. Yes. I think that will do nicely. For the rest of the game, you inhabit your item and perceive the world through its strange, inhuman senses. When the questions in the game refer to you, they mean your item and its evolving sentience. This item is your character for the rest of the game. When you have completed the instructions for your chosen artifact and are ready to play, empty your hands, close your eyes, and take a moment to breathe. Choose the first person to take ownership of you, your first keeper. Newly forged. Choose a keeper and resolve the process on page 4. So there's 4 options. We have a die for that. Three. A rogue without master. They are daring, charismatic, and talented. So I am to describe the keeper and how they acquired me, answer the questions, and choose from a table either victories in valor or neglecting mischief. Answer an artifact question, consider how the keeper loses me, and then move on to the time of rest. I'm going to do myself a solid for the future and put a post-it note on the tome page. Actually, I'll do it there. That's just as good. For easily going back. Daring, charismatic, talented rogue. A young apprentice at the library. Constantly curious about what Masked Lutherian is working on. Abigail. Abigail Hawthorne. Or so she says. She has come to the library to learn the ways of the scribe, or so she says. She has charmed the head librarian into fast-tracking her into the book duplication and creation area, where she has learned much about mixing ink and sharpening quills. And it has given her access to all of the new books, most of which are just treatises on various plants and animals of the region. This is the purview of this particular library, but it's quite clear that Masked Lutherian is onto something, and so Abigail Hawthorne is intrigued. And although she cannot manage to see over Lutherian's shoulder, and he always keeps the book under lock and key, she does know that he is obsessed with teas. And so she does her own research, and following his research, concocts, well, a potion of her own She, through finding his scraps of notes and learning as much as she can through osmosis and observation, she is able to devise a rudimentary sleep potion. Mostly just various kinds of teas with soporific effects, and she is able to slip it into his evening routine. And as he nods off, Abigail Hawthorne leaves behind that name and takes with her the tome. They're a rogue without a master. What marks them as a soul unburdened by servitude? Their flagrant disregard for the conventions of single identity. Abigail Hawthorne is no more. Now Abigail has become Teresa Hawkins. And it becomes Teresa's goal to learn all the secrets held within the tome. How did I help them pull off their boldest stunt? It took some time for Teresa to gain the tome's trust. Time and effort, but it was clear early on that Teresa was capable of understanding the knowledge held within. And it was very clear that her desire for the tome was not to sell it, was not to hurt it, but rather to understand it. And that was appealing to the tome. Masked Lutherian had ownership, had a domineering spirit over the tome. Being a bad father to a work of literature, the tome knew that there was no more that could be learned from this scholar. The sense of adventure and sense of curiosity that Teresa Hawkins still possessed, well, that was enough. And the tome opened up its pages to her, allowed her to write in her own recipes and her scribbled notes on how those recipes might be amended that already exist. Together, they leafed through various notions. She made many notes in the tome. And once, in her travels, no longer Teresa, but Clarissa, Clarissa Hawley, well, you can only wander for so long without a master and without profession before you start to feel the hunger Unfortunately, you do have to make your way in this world, and you need to find food, some means of supporting yourself. You need to find shelter and warmth. And so Clarissa, who once was Teresa, who once was Abigail, and who had once earned the trust of the tome, had gained enough proficiency with the potions held therein that she uncharacteristically offered her services to a high lord. And for a time, she became the healer of the court. But it became very clear very early that servitude was not in Clarissa's DNA. Clarissa could not be tamed in this way. She had taken the position with the best intentions. She was cold, she was hungry, and she wanted to feel useful. But even after a few weeks, she was feeling like she needed to move away again. And that's when the tome whispered to her, "Use me. Use me to take what you need." And Clarissa and the tome concocted a plan where she would use all of the knowledge that she had gained, and going back to that very first potion that she herself had devised, and was able to make not a sleeping potion, but a sleeping bomb. It was like a grenade. It was like a tear gas canister. It could be thrown into the central chamber at dinner time and create a cloud of sweet-smelling, slightly bitter, weirdly purple gas. And everyone in the entire estate, save Clarissa, drifted into a deep, impenetrable sleep. And Clarissa was able to go to the treasury room and collect enough for her trouble, and a bit more for the trouble that was to come. And she left behind her name and adopted that of the second cousin of the Lord, who had not been seen in many years. And so Beatrice left that place with the tome and a ludicrous surname of Thrumby, and more wealth than she could ever imagine. Beatrice would go through many more names, or she would, if unfortunately, after her escapade with the Lord Thrumby became known, she had to go into hiding. She had to run a lot. And she was able to escape. She saw many more names later on in life, but unfortunately, making a quick exit from the second story of a barn with some hired hands chasing after her, looking to retrieve their name and their gold. Unfortunately, well, the woman who had been Abigail dropped the tome, and it was not worth sacrificing her life to try and go back for it. And so she moved on. Probably clumped some damage, some straw. Choose the amount of time you must wait until your next keeper arrives. As you rest, think about the silence and solitude of abandonment. I think it's entirely probable that when the guards from Lord Thrumby lose the woman who was Abigail, they do find the tome and take it back to their lord. I think whether he knows what to do with it is a story for another time. And I think that's where we're going to leave off tonight. I think that's a goodly amount of story. And, yeah. We have a book of potions, a long history already, and that's only the first few months of the tome's existence. This should be fun. I'll be here next Monday. Yes, Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Should you want to follow along, we'll see where this tome goes. Good night, everybody.